Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak On It. I am your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to God who allows me to come to you in this manner on a weekly basis. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope everybody's out there safe. Bad weather all over the United States of America. Snow some places, 90 degrees in other places. It's being crazy out there. But let's go ahead and get into this. rwcoolins.com is the website. You can go there. RW Coolins over all social media platforms. Go there, follow, share, do what you do with all the other places you may watch and all the other shows you may watch. All right. 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All we ask is say what you mean what you say here on the Speak On This show. Also, we're broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube this morning. So, share that. Do what you do. Go back and look at it after the fact. However, but I want to start off with this week is I want to apologize for last week after the show, and I downloaded, the video from last week. It had a delay. I don't know what was going on. It had some kind of delay. Hopefully there's no delay today. Hopefully I corrected the problem. It was something I was trying to give y'all better quality. I was trying to give y'all better quality, and it didn't work out correctly. So I apologize for that last week, but it is what it is. These things happen. I'm a one-man operating show. So, it happens. It happens. Brian Hoodie, good morning, my brother. Good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. So it's the last weekend of Black History Month. It's the last weekend of Black History Month. Shouldn't be the last day we talk about Black history, but it's the last official day of Black History Month. And this morning, I want to start off with this for Black History Month. The end of Black History Month. This quote by the great James Baldwin. A lot of people overlook James Baldwin when it comes to the history of this country, the history of what impact he had during the civil rights movement and so on and so forth. And I've used this quote before, but I think it's something that is very relevant no matter what day you look at it, no matter how you look at it. And the quote says, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Now, during this Black History Month, we talked about a lot of things about, us trying to overcome. Looking back over slavery, looking back over the civil rights movement, Jim Crow, all the different things you can think about leading up through Black history. And not only concentrating on the fact of the oppression of us as a people, but everything that we've done good in this country and what this country means to us, even in spite of the things that have happened to us in this country as Americans, African Americans, Black Americans, however you want to identify it. But our history at this point is trying to be erased to a certain extent. And when I say erased, I mean, we talked about trying to take it out of classrooms, taking books out of classrooms, trying to eliminate the, as they try to say, the woke movement, all these different things. I don't like to use that woke movement, but it is what it is. But at the end of Black History Month, this weekend, leading into like Tuesday, I think it is. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. So I brought this up because I want everybody to understand something about our history. There's a lot of history out there that we have not even scratched the surface of understanding and knowing. There's a lot of history of us as a country in this country. James Battle, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. In this country that let me just put it this way. There's a lot of stuff that has been suppressed as far as what we know, as far as what we should know, and as far as what we take the time and the opportunity to learn. My challenge to everybody that's listening this morning and those who listen after the fact, take the time to start reading. Take the time to start learning. Take the time to start purchasing these books that they feel are such a threat to get you to understand exactly what went on, what our history is about, and to learn what we should learn, not what they choose for us to learn. Now, I understand, and I bring this up because just like I'm talking about James Baldwin right here. A lot of people know James Baldwin as the great, he wrote novels, poems, different things like that. But a lot of people don't understand that James Baldwin was, not only fighting as a Black man, he was fighting as a homosexual at the time that he was fighting. So the understanding that he was trying to get as far as him being as a man and what his choices were is something that I think is greatly overlooked. And I'm making a point to read more about James Baldwin, not just his writings, but who he was as a man, to really understand the struggle that he was going with, that he had to leave the United States and go to Paris, where he said he was treated more like a human being in Paris than he was in the United States of America. These are the things we need to pay attention to. These are the things we need to read up on. These are the things we need to engross and pour into our children so they have a better understanding of our history, a better understanding of the decisions that were made by certain people during this time because they weren't free to practice certain things in this country at the time. Not to be overlooked by the fact of there's so many things now that they're trying to eliminate here. And people will get upset when I say this, but what they're trying to eliminate here, as far as what we should know and what the writings are and what the truth is about certain things that have happened in this country. Why this is? Only the people doing it know. Why we need to be involved and do what we can to not allow them to erase our history is on us. We have to be involved. We have to be the ones to stand up and say, no more. We've had our history and our historical figures pushed by the wayside for too often. And we're guilty of it because we don't bring them to the forefront like we should. And it shouldn't just happen because it's Black History Month or African American History Month, whichever way you want to put it. It should happen on a daily basis. We should be highlighting these things all the time. All the time. James Battle, if y'all haven't watched the movie The Green Book, please watch it. It's on my list, bro. I got so many things I've been looking at. On my list, though. On my list. Yeah. But and those are the things that we tend to overlook. Like I talked to you guys about the 1619 Project documentary it was on. I watched the first 2 episodes in and out, but I haven't watched the full thing. So there's so much information out there that we can attain, that we can grasp onto. We just got to find the time to do it. And I know we all got busy lives. And there's some things that we rather look at, and I'm gonna be real here. Some of y'all would rather look at basketball game or a movie on Netflix or whatever, but there's many documentaries about our historical Black figures that are on Netflix that you just breeze past. Take the time. I mean, even if you incorporate maybe once a month, twice a month, just seek out those documentaries that talk about the historical value of those people who fought for us to be where we're at now, to get a better understanding of what they went through and why we're able to have the things that we have now, while we're still fighting these battles. You have to understand what they were fighting for then in comparison to what we're fighting about now. Something as simple as voting rights. And I say it's simple, but the voting rights, the gerrymandering going on that you hear me talk about, all those different things. Teachings, the education of the historical value of who we are in this country, all those different things need to be brought up, need to be understood, need to be learned. Not only by us as adults, but as our children, our grandchildren, so they understand. Because once the history has been erased, it's hard to capture it back. And we got to get better at that as far as doing that. James Baldwin, excuse me. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. Just something I wanted to start off the show with this morning. Just put it out there at the end of African American Black History Month. But being that I was talking about James Baldwin, excuse me. Being I was talking about James Baldwin, started off with that. I mentioned that James Baldwin was, got something on the show, I don't like that. James Baldwin was not only a Black man, but he was homosexual. Let's just call it what it is. And in today's society, there's a lot of things going on where people have this vision, what should be allowed, what shouldn't be allowed, all those different things we talk about consistently. And then this next segment that I'm going to go to, we're going to talk about Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade and his now daughter, Zaya. Dwayne Wade and his daughter, Zaya. And I'm going to give you my input on this, and I'm going to let you know some information about that. But let's go ahead and take this interlude real quick. So Dwayne Wade's daughter, who was his son, Zaya, the name is now, and I can't remember the initial name. But today, this week, Dwayne Wade's daughter was officially granted a legal name and gender change by the Los Angeles judge. Zaya is 15 years old. And Dwayne Wade and his new wife, his wife now, not the mother of the child, but his wife now, Gabrielle Union, asked the court to legally grant a name change and a gender change. The mother, the biological mother, pushed back, said that she was told that she was, in their divorce, she was allowed to be involved in these conversations and in what's going on with their children and so on and so forth. But she was overruled in this case because her mindset was that Zaya, if she has the desire to change her gender and her name, should wait until a certain age, which I think was 18, rather than at the age of 15, where Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union went in and put the paperwork in for this to happen. Now, I don't want people to think that I'm against this anyway or whatever. You do what you do. But what I will say is this. We have to step back for a minute, and we understand that everyone is different. We understand that everyone, has their different feelings about who they are, no matter what the situation. But I think where the question comes in is 15 years old too young? That would be the conversation. Is 15 years on this earth too young to be having this conversation about gender change and name change? Is it too young to be getting to the point where you feel that you are ready to go all in? And I say all in, to have your natural born anatomy changed at the age of 15. A lot of people will agree that she should be able to make her decision. A lot of people would disagree. I would put it to you like this. At 15 years old, I want everybody out there to think, when you were 15 years old, what did you truly know about yourself? Yeah, let's go to 18 years old, 21 years old. What did you truly know about yourself? And when I say about yourself, you may know in your mind exactly how you feel about a certain thing. You may know in your mind how you feel about, whether you're a man who is attracted to men or you're a woman attracted to women. Not talking about that. At 15 years old, do you truly know that this is the path that you want to go for the rest of your life, that you're willing and have the mindset to make a decision to change your anatomy to something completely different than what you were born with? Just a question to put out there. Dwayne Wade, Gabrielle Union, Miss Savon Funches, the biological mother, and Zaya Wade, and the family members. That's something they all have to deal with. But I would put it out there in the mindset of thinking this through thoroughly. Because I'm a true believer that at 15 years old, and I will say this about myself. At 15 years old, I can't say that I knew who I was. I can't say that I truly knew what drove me. I can't truly say that I knew what I was attracted to and was going to be attracted to on a consistent basis, because it was not the mindset of me being who I was at that age. Everyone's different. Everyone grows different. Everybody's thought processes is different, and so on and so forth. But is 15 too young? Is 15 too young? Now, I know at 15, the parents had to be the ones to allow this. Just like when you're going to join the military, if you're not 18, your parents have to sign for you to be able to, go. But we're talking about a life change here. I don't know. It's a hard one, because I have to think about if it was my son that wanted to make this change. Would I be comfortable saying no first? Or would I be comfortable saying yes? Which way? Which way? Terrence Collins, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate you. In here, it also says they filed for the changes back in August of 2022. In documents, he stated the change to conform with gender identity, and had the authority to side for the petitioning minor against the wishes of Zaya's mom, Savon Funches. And she brought out, this is what they said: pursuant to the terms of the final custody judgment, Mr. Wade has full authority to make decisions on behalf of the petitioning minor, and he is not required to receive consent from Ms. Funches Wade. The documents obtained by the blast read. As a courtesy, Ms. Funches Wade has received notice of this petition. So they're saying in their final custody of judgment that she had no say. He is not required to receive consent from her. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I just wonder, is 15 too young? Zaya came out as trans back in 2020, and the way he publicly shared the news. We are proud parents of a child in the LGBTQ community, LGBTQ plus community, and we're proud allies as well. Is what he told Ellen DeGeneres. We take our roles and responsibility as parents very seriously. Stop right there for a minute. This is 2023. Zaya came out as trans back in 2020. I want you to think about this now. It's 3 years ago. She's 15 now. She was 12 at the time. Let that marinate. 12 at the time. I'll let y'all be the judge of that. I'm going to leave that alone. I just don't feel that 15, 12, 13, 14, 15 is the right age for someone to make a decision, a life decision, even though the parents' support of changing the anatomy of an individual at that young an age. Just me. Just me. It's hard, y'all. That's a hard one. Because we want everyone to be who they are. We want everybody to be comfortable with who they want to be. But is that too young? Is that too young? Michelle Lynn Summerall, good morning. I agree. That's young. That's too young. However, that's where I'm at. I'm in the same place, Michelle. I'm in the same place. You know, decisions that we make, decisions that we have to do. It is what it is. Terrence Collins, the challenge as I see it is that people who are not in the LGBT community are the people who are usually imposing their beliefs on the individual. Yeah, to a certain extent, because we're so conditioned that what is right and what is wrong. And I truly understand that. And this is not a conversation to go against anybody in the LGBT community. Don't get me wrong. I'm just wondering when you talk about, you know, expressing who you are and being who you are, I understand that. But getting to the point of making a decision to completely change the anatomy of an individual at that young of an age, in spite of the fact that they may know who they are and they recognize who they are and that they're different per se than what we call normal. And I don't want to say normal, different. You get what I'm saying. But when you talk about going in and doing a complete change of an anatomy of an individual before a certain time period when they truly know who they are, that's the only question that I bring up that I think I want to put out there for conversation. You know, you live your life, you do what you do. As I mentioned about James Baldwin, I'm a James Baldwin fan. I don't look at James Baldwin as being a homosexual man. I look at James Baldwin as being a great novelist, as a great fighter for justice and all those things. His sexual preference or his lifestyle had nothing to do with it. And I'm the same way with anyone else. But I have to pause for a minute when you tell me somebody at 12 years old recognized they were trans, and then at 15 they want to do a surgery that changes everything about them from that point on, and there's no reversal to it. Could be. I don't know surgically. I don't know. I'm just saying. Just saying. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too deep. I just wanted to put that out there for thought. And it's just something that I seen that for me, I'm going to speak for me. I think it's just too young. That's just where I'm at. Just where I'm at. Next, we're going to get into Malcolm X's family having this lawsuit. It's on the lawsuit. Sorry for the typo, LGBTQ. Oh, no, we knew what you said. Wait, it just says LGTB. Oh, okay. You added a couple things or reversed them. That's all right. That's all right. Michelle Summerall, this might sound like it's strays, but I oppose BBLs too. I don't believe God gave us the bodies he wanted us to have for us to change them. Yeah, that's I'm gonna have to have you on when I talk about this one. When we talking about enhancements, body enhancements, and you're right, it may be straying off a little bit, but it's still in the realm of surgery of changing something about who you are. But yeah, I plan to have a conversation about enhancements and cosmetic surgery, all involved. So I'll keep you posted when that's going to happen. So, but as I was mentioning, Malcolm X's family put a lawsuit in this week after all these years. And I laugh not because it took so long, but I laugh because it's just finally coming to fruition. There's a lot of things that have been left out of this conversation. So when we come back from this interlude, We'll get into that. The family of civil rights leader Malcolm X marked the anniversary of his 1965 assassination on Tuesday by announcing plans to sue the FBI, the New York Police Department, and CIA for $100 million, claiming they concealed evidence related to his murder. For more than half a century, the circumstances surrounding the notorious assassination have been shrouded in mystery, fueling long-held conspiracy theories about possible government involvement. I don't think this is anything new to anybody, but let me proceed. Two men who were convicted of murdering Malcolm X in 1966 were exonerated in 2021 after serving decades in prison. And the New York District Attorney admitted that the FBI and the New York Police Department at the time withheld evidence. And it says, for years, our family has fought for the truth to come to light concerning his murder. Eliza Shabazz, a daughter of Malcolm X, said at a news conference at the site of her father's assassination, which is now a memorial. The civil rights leader was 39 when he was assassinated in 1965 at an auditorium in New York's Washington Heights neighborhood. Three gunmen shot at least 21 times at Malcolm X's four children and pregnant wife, as Malcolm X's four children and pregnant wife ducked for safety. At the news conference on Tuesday, civil rights lawyer Ben Crump said it's not just about the triggermen. It's about those who conspire with the triggermen to do this dastardly deed. He claims that government agencies had factual and exculpatory evidence that they concealed from the family of Malcolm X and the men who were wrongly convicted of assassination. Crump alleged that high-ranking U.S. officials conspired to kill the civil rights leader, repeatedly referencing J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director who died in 1972. I got a comment coming in on the last topic. Let's go and get into this. Arlene George, good morning, Rodney. 15 years old, you're still learning about life. 12 years is just living a life of fantasy. You're following and copying what others are doing rather than what you should be doing. At the same time, factor in the concept of peer pressure. We don't know what on earth we want to do in life at that age as a teenager. I hope later in life, the child's life, there are no regrets. All I'm saying. Thank you, Arlene. Hope you're doing safe over there through those earthquakes. Arlene's over there, and I don't want to put it out there, information out there, but she was over there in Turkey, and with those earthquakes they had over there, she was affected by that. Obviously, she's chiming in, so she's doing good. We're praying for your sister. Stay safe over there. Appreciate you chiming in this morning. So as I was mentioning about Malcolm X and his lawsuit, I went back and I did a little history, just perusing as I always do. And we talk about Malcolm X, and we all are aware and have our understandings that the FBI, CIA, police department, all of them were involved with the murder, assassination of Malcolm X. Let's just be honest about it. There's nothing that we need to even question about it. But I went back and I looked at an interview that Mike Wallace did with Louis Farrakhan and Malcolm X's daughter. I can't remember which one, so y'all forgive me. But in watching this interview, Louis Farrakhan, who the Shabazz family, had thoughts that he was involved in the murder of their father. During the interview, and you can go watch it, it's on YouTube. During the interview, never one time did Louis Farrakhan speak to the point of saying that he was not involved. He talked about everything else, about how, there were people within the nation who were upset with Malcolm because he exposed Elijah Muhammad and he was going on his own way and so on, all the things we know to be true. But he never denied the fact that he was involved. He never said he wasn't involved. He never said it either way. But to see this come out now that, Attorney Ben Crump, the Shabazz family, are suing the police department, the FBI, the CIA, because they withheld information about who was responsible. They arrested people who they say did not do anything, and then they exonerated them years later. It goes to show you that during the time when we had the Malcolm X and Reverend Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., excuse me, that the FBI and the J. Edgar Hoover had a plan. They had a plan to eliminate what they felt was a threat from the African Americans, blacks, whichever way you want to label it at the time. The threat that they had so much power over the people that were following them, that the best thing to do was to eliminate the threat, to continue to impose their will in any way they want. Now, as far as this lawsuit, I understand the lawsuit. But also in this lawsuit, I think it should be something that reveals or they release anything and everything that dealt with the assassination and leading up to the assassination, on what kind of surveillance they were doing, who was doing the surveillance, who the people inside were that they were using, because, you know, they always have those plants, who those people were, and so on and so on. I say this because when we talk about Malcolm X, who was assassinated at 39 years old, when we talk about the Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., and I can't remember the exact date he was assassinated or how old he was, but it was around that same age. But they were around the same time. Let's just be real. I often sit back and ask myself, which I'm sure many of you do, if they were able to complete their mission as they had started, without interference from the FBI or anybody, or the assassination that took their lives, or how different would things be today? When we talk about Black Wall Street and how they did Black Wall Street out in Tulsa, Oklahoma, how different would prosperity in the African American community be today if it started in Tulsa and had spread? How different would things be if a lot of these things didn't happen in our history, that we don't know why we know why they happened, but who was making these things happen? I bring that up because it's not only at that time, and I'm jumping around a little bit, it's not only at that time where this is going on, it still goes on today. A lot of you have heard me talk on here before about I got the word messed up. Hold on. Y'all bear with me. COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO was a counterintelligence program known as, and it was by the FBI back in 1956. An assassination of Malcolm X, assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and others that were killed who were civil rights movements, heads. It's I always get the word, COINTELPRO, excuse me, y'all. This COINTELPRO was designed specifically to spy, to integrate, to put people in these places so they knew what the next move was. And I bring that up today in conjunction with the lawsuit that Malcolm X family has brought up, to something else that I found this week that was very interesting to me. It wasn't surprising, but it was very interesting. Is that this article by Ashley Banks, dated February 22nd of 2023. And it says the FBI paid informant to sow discord during the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests. The FBI paid an informant to sow discord during the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests. There was a predisposition within the FBI to view Black political activism as violent, journalist Trevor Arison told the Griot. And this is what it breaks down to. A newly released investigative podcast revealed that the FBI paid a felon to infiltrate Denver's Black Lives Matter protest in 2020, following the death of George Floyd, a 46-year-old man killed by law enforcement in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Journalist Trevor Arison produced a podcast, Alphabet Boys, which details how the FBI allegedly used Michael Adam Windecker II to target Black activists and coerce them into joining the plot to assassinate Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser. See that? Assassinate, infiltrate, coerce. According to the podcast, Windecker tried to recruit activist Zeb Hall to participate in the assassination plan. Hall said he refused and that Windecker, an ex-felon, coerced him to purchase a gun on his behalf. I had to get this guy this gun because if I don't get this guy this gun, he's got my information. He's got my family's information. Aronson told the Griot that Hall was frightened of what Windecker would do if he refused to conspire. Everyone I talked to described how they were deathly afraid of Windecker. He had pictures of dead ISIS fighters on his phone, he claimed. He added, Windecker spoke of having killed people. He had a criminal history that was violent, and so people that got close to him were afraid to back away from him, in part because they were fearing physical harm from him. Aronson believes that Hall should not have faced any consequences for his actions. This crime was wholly manufactured and would not have taken place were it not for the FBI, he argued. Zab used FBI money to purchase a gun to give to an FBI informant, who then gives that gun to the FBI. So this was an entirely victimless client crime, and it was a crime that would not have happened were it not for the FBI pushing them to do this. Now, I know that's a mouthful, but it's the same play, run over and over and over again. They infiltrated the Black Lives Matter movement. They found someone, they coerced him into buying a gun, and because the guy was afraid of him because he was a murderer, where he showed pictures that he killed people in Afghanistan and all these different things you can think of, where they put fear in this individual to go and purchase this gun, which they gave him the gun to Windecker. Windecker did whatever he was going to do. Then he turned it over to the FBI, saying that it belonged to Mr. Hall. But all this was done under the cover of being BLM, Black Lives Matter. And this is today. This is back in 2020. 2020. COINTELPRO was back in 1956, if I remember correctly what I read. The tactics have not changed. The story has not changed. The only thing that has changed about this movie that we're watching, I'm going to put it in the movie text. The only thing that's changed about this movie are the lead actors. Because the producer of this film, I mean, just play it like this, the producer of this film is the FBI. The executive producers are the local law enforcement, the CIA, so on and so on are the executive producers. The main the associate producer is our government, FBI. And then they got their fill-in actors, their stand-ins, but you got your main actors there. But it's the same plot, the same story, the same antagonist, and so on and so forth. When I seen this, and I had to be honest with you, when I seen this, I'm not gonna say I got angry, but it upset me. And it upset me because how many other organizations have the FBI, the CIA, or any of these organizations that we call government agencies infiltrated to impose their will from the inside to put a stop to whatever justice reform or justice fighting that these organizations are trying to do? And I also bring this up in the same breath of why I got not angry, but upset. I have never to this day, maybe once, maybe twice, seen on a consistent basis this story with the same actors, but of different color. And I say that to mean I've never seen this happen with all these white nationalist movements, the KKK movement. You had one guy that infiltrated. There was a movie that came out. I can't remember the name of it, but everybody's seen it. I think Denzel's son was in it. But you never hear this on a consistent basis. You never hear it to the point of them assassinating anybody. I ask that in a facetious manner because how can you tell me that Black Lives Matter was such a threat because of the movement behind what they did to George Floyd and what we've seen happen to other people over traffic stops, was such a threat to this society that the FBI, the CIA, or whoever felt they needed to send somebody to infiltrate them out there in Denver, Colorado, to go to assassinate the Attorney General. I think it was the Attorney General. Yeah, Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser. But that's a bigger threat than the white nationalists, the white supremacy movements, the KKK, all those things you can think about. Black Lives Matter was more of a threat than that? Or is it that it's more of a threat because who it is and what they're fighting for and what their stance is about is more of a threat than the white nationalists, the white supremacists, the KKK, so on and so forth? And you heard me say on here many times how many different white nationalist organizations there are on this United States soil. But when people bring up the fact that white nationalism, white supremacy is the biggest threat to our democracy, people want to blow that off. But if you listen to the news in certain channels, they would tell you Black Lives Matter was more of a threat to our democracy than any of those organizations. And then you sit back and you ask and you talk about the history of us as a people and all of our great leaders who were making change, who were forcing change, who were imposing change, were also being infiltrated by the FBI and the CIA back then. Not the injustice system where people were being brought up on different charges than they've done, or anybody where they got rid of the oh Lord, I just went. I'm sorry. The Black Panthers and all the different organizations you can think about through our history, where they're more of a threat than who? Or were they even a threat? Or was the visuals to make them seem like they're a threat? I bring these things up because I think sometimes we get complacent. We sit back and we look at these things and we look at them from a glass half full mentality per se. And when I say a glass half full, is that, it's bad, but it could be worse. That's what I think our mindset is. It's bad, but it could be worse, because think about how far we've come. We hear that all the time. Oh, we've come so far. We don't have to worry about it. Look at what was going on then. Look what's going on now. You got jobs, you're making money, you're doing this, you're doing that. But the same things are still occurring. The same things are still relevant. The same tactics are still being used. So if the same tactics are still being used and the same mentality is still there on what they want to do to a people that they don't want to see become powerful. And when I say powerful, I don't mean powerful as like just take over everything. I mean powerful to the point of where we're not going to put up with this anymore. We're going to change the way things are being done by integrating ourselves into these justice systems, into the political systems, into the things that are done every day that we see needs to be changed. But something that meant as much as the Black Lives Matter movement during George Floyd's during George Floyd's death at the hands of a police officer. Someone in the FBI decided to pay a felon to infiltrate the Black Lives Matter movement in Denver, Colorado, and look to assassinate the Colorado Attorney General in 2023, which is the same tactics from 1956. Many are comparing the Denver ordeal to the FBI's 1956 counterintelligence program known as COINTELPRO. During that time, FBI agents infiltrated black organizations like the Black Panther Party and violated the First Amendment rights of black activists. Aronson told the Griot that the FBI used tactics that were intrusive and saw BLM as a terrorist group. There was a predisposition within the FBI to view black political activism as violent, even though on its face, the overwhelming majority of racial justice demonstrations that summer were peaceful. While COINTELPRO no longer exists, you can see very clearly in this case and in the summer of 2020 that many of these methods that were used to a devastating effect against the civil rights movement in the 1960s were used against the racial justice movement in 2020. Mr. Hall told the Griot that Windecker used an old FBI technique called snitch jacketing, and would accuse real activists of being FBI informants whenever people suspected he could be one. Aronson said the informant did that to sow chaos, similar to what FBI informants did in the 1960s. The COINTELPRO investigations of the 60s showed that the informants were encouraging violence, encouraging activists to commit crimes, but they were also accusing real activists and real leaders of these movements of being informants themselves. He said, Hall believes the FBI has a history of infiltrating black organizations because the government fears how resilient black Americans can be. Look at what happened in 2020. Look at all those people out there. You had black, brown, white, yellow, red, LGBT. You had everything. That's what black power is. They fear that. They see that through our perseverance, everything that we go through threatens their power. The FBI has an enormous amount of power that's received very little congressional oversight. He noted that following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, the FBI was granted a substantial amount of power. A lot of its practices, such as sting operations and the use of informants, were more tolerated by the American public. Why? Because they were terrorists that looked different than the American citizen. But if you look at the Oklahoma bombing with Timothy McVeigh and how that coverage was, the uproar about Timothy McVeigh and Oklahoma City bombing was because there was a daycare involved. Not because he was a homegrown terrorist, not because he was a white man on American soil that was going against the government. The main focus of what he did in Oklahoma City, to most people, was the fact that there was a daycare involved when the explosion happened. Let's just be honest about it. The uproar about the towers, the Pentagon, were because of how they looked, where they came from to do this on American soil. Fast forward to 2020 and the racial justice demonstrations, and I think given this new power that it had been given in the post 9/11 era, the FBI kind of slipped back and returned to many of its ways during COINTELPRO. When does it stop? When does change happen? When we look back over history, and if you want to talk about the full history, when you say terrorists, people only see terrorists as people who come here from another country and do something on this soil. But if you look through history, the FBI at the time with this COINTELPRO were homegrown terrorists. The people who did what they did in Tulsa, Oklahoma were homegrown terrorists. The person and the people behind him who assassinated the Reverend Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. were homegrown terrorists. The people who were behind and assassinated Malcolm X were homegrown terrorists. But we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to look at that. And the only reason these two people that I just mentioned were assassinated because they were fighting for justice for the people that look like them. Let that marinate. Think about that for a minute. You had two people that we're talking about today, because there were many more. Let's just be real. There were many more. But you had two people that we talk about all the time that were fighting for justice for all. For all. As Malcolm X said one time, he said, all we want is to be able to cash the check, and I'm paraphrasing, that you said this country was about. But you had the FBI, the CIA, the presidents of the United States of America, all these different factions and everything that took the time to ensure that one way or another, what their vision was from the Malcolm X to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all those who marched with him and all those who were fighting for the same thing, the justice that we wanted, wouldn't come to fruition, would not come to fruition. Why is that? What is the fear? What is the fear? Thank you, Michelle. What is the fear? Or what was the fear? Or what continues to be the fear of equality in this country? You can't sit back and say that you're for equal this and equal that when you only want it for certain people at certain times that look a certain way or that vote a certain way. Watch out now. That vote a certain way in this country. In my 56 years on this earth, 56 years, you would have thought, with everything that has been done through history on this soil, for all the wars that have been fought with people like me being on the front line, with all the things that have happened in this country, when you got, and I'll just bring this up to current now, you got the water crisis going on in East Palatine or whatever it is, Pennsylvania, Ohio, I think it is, I'm sorry. You had the water crisis in Flint, Michigan. You had the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi. But of all, and the crisis in East Palatine is because of the train derailment and the fumes and getting in the water and all this kind of stuff. But I asked the question of which one seemed more important to who? Because to this day, Flint, Michigan still has dirty water. What's been done? What has been done? What has changed? Jackson, Mississippi, same thing. What has been done? And when you talk about why things aren't changing, the people that are in the positions to make the change aren't the ones that need the change. So if you don't have people in the position that need the change in order to make the change, change never happens. What changes is the tactics and how they keep you from being able to have the justices and the equality that you deserve. That's it. The playbook's the same. The actors may change, but the outcome consistently stays the same. Consistently. I don't know. I don't know. It's bad that we have to close out, and I'll say it this way, Black History Month, talking about what we still need to do to be equal. What we still need to do to be taken seriously. Let's start there. What we still need to do, and why we're still asking at this date, why? Why don't I have the right to? Why am I being blocked from? Why are my leaders being silenced? Whether by the gun, I'll just leave it at that. Silenced. But I'll say this as well. We as a community got to do better as well. We're not we're not we're not exempt from playing a factor in some of these things as well. We may not be the biggest factor, but we play a factor. And I say we play a factor because this competition we have amongst each other. Competition is good. Don't get me wrong. Competition is good. But when we get into this competition about because I'm doing this or I'm doing that, and you don't agree with what I'm doing, and I'm this and I'm that, or I get called out of my name because I fit these narratives that people want to put on me, that I'm the house Negro or Uncle Tom or a coon and all this. Why? Because at the end of the day, no matter how you feel about that person, they're looking for the same equality as you. They just may be going about it a different way. They may just be going about it a different way. But don't disparage them from going about it their way because you don't agree with their way, because their end goal is the same. Equality. To be equal. James Battle, we are always a bigger threat in their minds. Example is National Guard being deployed for a BLM protest in DC, but not for the attempted coup on January 6th. And you know, I'm going to say this, and I was having this conversation. When we talk about January 6th, and this is something I think and I'm guilty of it, I was guilty of it, that I have to catch myself at times. I think we got to get out of this mindset of when we talk about things that happen and doing these comparisons. One of the biggest ones was January 6th. And this is nothing about you, Battle. This is just something I thought about when you said that. But when January 6th happened, the first thing most of us said as African Americans was, boy, if they was black, they wouldn't have been able to do none of that. Which is a true statement in most cases. But we got to get out of this mindset of doing a comparison of what they can get away with and what we can't. We had to get on the focus of what we need to be doing and push for that. Not that they got away with this, they got away. It's like, I think I was talking to Mr. Hoodie the other day. And I said, we got to get away from this mindset of, if I'm at the table and you're at the table, we're two black men at the table, and the plates come out to that table with the food that we had, and we ordered the same thing. And we got to get out of this mindset of thinking that because your plate may look like you got more than me, that there's an issue. Everyone is not going to have everything the same. But at the end of the day, we're all fighting for the same. And that's the focus we need to stay on, is when I see these comparisons about who's better at this and who's better at that, and you only see this in our community. And it's done by the media in most cases of who's the GOAT, LeBron or Michael Jordan. You never hear a debate about who's the GOAT, Tom Brady or. If I'm wrong, let me know. There's always these comparisons. Who's the better comedian? You know, Cat Williams or Kevin Hart. And then you have them going at it like this because somebody said something they didn't like and all this stuff. We all should be able to get a seat at the table. We're not going to agree 100% of the time. But at the end of the day, we're all striving to accomplish the same things in this life. Be as successful as you can be without comparison of what somebody else has and what somebody else don't have, as I mentioned in one of my Mind, Body, and Souls. Come on, y'all. Come on. Come on. If you think about it, this was the same thing and the same mentality was going on between Malcolm X and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They didn't start it because they were saying the same thing. They were just saying it in different ways. And because they were saying it in different ways, people chose to put them against each other. But at the end of the day, they both were fighting for the same thing: equality for a people. Equality. Big Al, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Enjoy Northwest Florida down there, my brother. Enjoy. Let's get into this. Mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. It's the year 2023. To this year, we're not doing resolutions, we're doing lifestyle changes. It's all about becoming a better you. You know who you are. You know better than anybody else. Becoming a better you. Today's mind, body, and soul. These three words are some of the simplest words ever spoken. But at times they become the hardest words to be spoken. Today's mind, body, and soul, the three words are: I love you. I love you. I wanted to bring this up today because, and I'll say this as far as my experiences within our community. These three words seem so hard to say. They seem to be taboo at times. I love you are probably three of the words, or three words, that many people are hesitant to say. They'll tell you everything else. They'll tell you everything else. They'll speak to you, talk to you. But when it comes to those three words, it's like a block comes up. And I think because those three words can mean so much, they can cause people to imagine so many things. And it can cause the mind to wonder or get put doubt in the fact of, does this person truly mean what they're saying? And I'll start it off and say it this way. As a man, as a young Black man, hearing these words in a lot of cases were uncomfortable for some of us. Let's just be honest. We're uncomfortable for some of us. And when I say uncomfortable, not uncomfortable to the point of you didn't receive it, but uncomfortable by who was saying it to you. And not because you felt a certain way that a man shouldn't tell a man this or that. It was just something about these three words. As a young Black man, I noticed that it was either unspoken, or when it was spoken, it was received differently. Some of us have parents who have never spoken those three words to us until later on in life. Some of us have grandparents who may have never said those three words to you. Some of us have friends that say it to us all the time. Some of us say it to our friends, and at times they're like in shock that you said it because they don't know how to respond. But their first reaction is to say it back, but then you have to ask, did they truly mean it? I say this because we got to get to a point in our lives where we understand that we have to speak exactly how we feel. And when you say you love someone, it doesn't have to be, I love you in an intimate manner to the person. which is, I think, where the problem comes in, because most time when we say I love you to somebody, we think it has to be an intimate feeling towards somebody, and it regulates to sexuality and all that. No, 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 no. Let's clear that out for a minute. When you say I love you to somebody, when you speak your mind as men to a man, or woman to a woman, or someone that's a friend of yours, and you decide to speak those three words to them, you're telling them you love them because of who they are in your life. You're telling you love them because what impact they've had on your life. You tell them you love you because you love them because something about them being in your life makes your life better. And because of that, you have a true love for them. See, love is one of the most misunderstood things that I think we'll ever have to deal with. Because I think sometimes we get caught up in the fact that we love someone, but sometimes we realize that maybe it's an infatuation more than a love, or there's so many different variations of love that we get caught up in it and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then we get caught up in the fact that if you decide to leave a relationship, that you no longer love that person, but you may still love that person. But they get into that, well, I love him, but I'm not in love with him. Stop playing those words. What you've done, if you still love that person and you decide that you're going to leave that person, you're going to go on about your business, you're going to go your way, they're going to go their way. It's not the fact that you stopped loving that person. It's the fact that maybe you've grown apart. And the love you had for them at one time is not the same at this time, but you still have not fallen out of love with that person. See, these scapegoats that we use. And while love, the word love, has such this misunderstood meaning to it. Stop that. If you love someone, let them know. If you love someone for being in your life, let them know. Sometimes we find any way possible to tell somebody I love them without saying I love you. Why? I tell you guys a lot of times at the end of my shows, I love y'all. You know why? Because I do. And I love each and every one of you who tune in for different reasons. And that's the other part. There's different reasons that you can love someone. There's different reasons that you appreciate someone. There's different reasons why you're with someone. There's different reasons for all the things that we do in our life. But we don't have to pinpoint it down to one reason. And you shouldn't have to do that because you decide to tell someone that you truly love them. If you love them, let them know. Don't wait till it's too late. And if you got a problem with saying I love you to somebody, put something on the end of it. I love you, man. I love you, girl. You know what I'm saying? It kind of helps you gauge it out a little bit. But when you just say I love you, sometimes people some of y'all may agree with what I'm saying, some of you won't, but I'm just telling you from my perspective, we got to get better with expressing to our people, the people in our lives, how we truly feel about them. You have no problem telling them when something's wrong. Take the time to let them know when something's right. If they're still in your life, that means they mean something to you. And deep down in our hearts, we know what love is. We know the differences of how we love people. Stop making it more complicated than it needs to be. But I will also tell you, don't just go around here throwing I love you out there for the wrong reasons. Let's put that out there too. A lot of y'all been guilty of that too. I love you. I love you for who you are. I love you for supporting me. I love you for being in my life one way or another, whether it's by chance or by circumstance. For a reason or a season, I still love you. And the reason I love you is because God loves me. And because God loves me, I choose to love you. It's that simple for me. How you receive it, how you deal with it, and how you choose to go on about your life is up to you. But for me, I love you because God chose to love me. He makes me feel worthy, and I'm worthy to have you in my life. It's that simple for me. Some will receive it, some won't. That's your choice. But whether you receive it or not, I'm still going to give it. I'm still going to express it. And I'm still going to be me when I say it. It's that simple. Let's go ahead and wrap this up for today. Love you, big bro. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Let's go ahead and wrap this up for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Hey, another show, another thing. Look, everything we talked about today on these shows is information I want to get out there. There's a lot of things that we hear about, a lot of things we don't know about, a lot of things that, I just take off with and put out there. But somebody this morning heard something that I said, and they said to themselves, I didn't know that. Or they said to themselves, I didn't even think of it that way. That's what this show was all created for. Looking at things differently, not to change your mind, but to make you think differently after you listen to the show. Big bro T, appreciate you, bro. Love you, love you, love you. I owe you a phone call too. Arlene George, you better love me as your big sister. Got nothing but love for you, girl. Nothing but love for you. Be safe over there too. All right, be safe over there. But it does my heart joy to come on here every Saturday morning to y'all, put some information out there, and to get the phone calls that say, hey, I appreciate this, or I didn't agree with it. Even if you don't agree with it, the fact that you listen and then we can have a conversation about it brings me joy. I ain't always right. I am not always right and will not always be right. But I'm willing to put myself out there, and I'm willing to receive when someone sees what I have to say differently than what they think. That's what it's all about, because how can you learn if you don't accept what others' opinions are that may not be consistent with what yours are? James Battle, love you, bro. Appreciate you, man. Long time. Amy Weed, love you, bro. Appreciate you, sis. Appreciate you. James Battle. Hey, man, we go all the way back to 1985, 86. Clark Air Base, Philippines. The brotherhood we had there, we can't have nothing but love for each other, bro. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. Hopefully you got your book too. I appreciate you. Oh, and also, Miss Michelle, I received the books, and I want everybody to know I have 10 autographed books from Miss Michelle Sumrall. If you would like one of those autographed books, I got the book right here. Hold on. I put it there. It is. I don't move it. If you would like one of the autographed books, Scattered: A Caregiver's Journey by Miss Michelle Sumrall, I have 10 copies autographed by the author herself. If you would like one, or if you received yours, or if you would like one, send me an email, send me a text, rwcoolins@yahoo.com, or send me a message through DM, and let me know you would like one. Give me an address. We'll get that book out to you. All right. And, and I may request something from you for the book. Not no monetary value, just some information from you. And we're going to take it from there. James Battle, I love the book. Thanks to both of you. Welcome, bro. And thank you to Michelle Sumrall for providing those books and that information. And two things real quick. I mentioned last week that I want to have a panel, barbershop talk. Speak on the Show presents Barbershop Talk. It's going to be men. We're going to be on here, and we're going to have a conversation, men conversations. We're going to talk about anything and everything. And it's going to be a conversation where those stereotypes, those misunderstandings, we're going to put those out there, and we're going to talk about it. We're just going to talk about it. One of them that we're going to talk about is, relationships. That's going to be in the conversation. And one of the things, and I was having this conversation with, I don't know if I'm going to put him out there, with Mr. Hoodie the other day. And we talked about men and cheating, and why this label of cheating is put on men. And when men do it, it's a certain mindset. When women do it, it's another mindset. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but the conversation we had went deep, and it broadened off into so many different areas that it's a conversation I think we need to have, because in most cases, what we find out is when people cheat, and I'll just put it this way, when people cheat, 9 times out of 10, there's some underlying things to it, just not dealing with the person that they're with. There's voids. We all have some type of void in our life that causes us to do things that we may not understand at the time we do it. But as you grow older, as you mature, you realize that what I was going through at that time, the reason I was going through that, because I was missing something here. And that's not an excuse. That's truth. When people do certain things, you have to look at the bigger picture. There's voids in most of our lives that we probably haven't even scratched the surface of why that void is there, to understand what the void is. But as you go in life and you start researching those things and why you did these things and what that void was, you can pinpoint things clearly. rather than just following this status quo of you did this. I think the biggest question we have to ask sometimes is, why did we do this? Some of the conversations we're going to have. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Let me get off here. I appreciate everybody tuning in. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely, keep your faith in God. I'll see y'all next week. I appreciate y'all. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. See y'all next week. Peace.